Saving and keeping your Photoshop document is always useful because that will allow you to go back and make changes to any of the layers that you used in your compositions. The file size of the Photoshop document will always depend on the amount of layers that you have and also on the resolution of the images that you have in the document. Here at the bottom in the status bar, you can always see an indication of the current file size of the document. And out of the two numbers, the first one shows you how big it would be if you flatten the document. So you merge all the layers into one, and the number on the right shows you the current size, with all the layers still available. Unlike other Adobe applications, Photoshop is backward compatible when it comes to saving Photoshop files, which means if you have earlier versions like CS6, CS5, you will still be able to open PSD files saved in Photoshop Creative Cloud, for example. It is a bit more trickier to do the same with Illustrator or InDesign, but in case you want to save into a more universal file format, you can also choose the TIFF file format, which you can find also under the Save As option from the File menu. And there you will be able to find this a bit further down here, almost at the bottom, which will also be able to save layers, just like the Photoshop document. And it can hold almost everything the same way, like adjustment layers, masking, paths, and so on and so forth. When you save a TIFF file, you will also get this dialog box where you can choose whether you want to use image compression. Now that is an interesting thing because if you choose LZW or zip, these are actually harmless compressions. So they are not going to ruin the quality of your file, but they can still make it smaller in file size. In case you want to compress your file even more, you could even use JPEG compression, but bear in mind that is going to reduce the quality, and it also might not be supported by older TIFF readers, as this warning tells us. So I'm just going to keep it all LZW, which is, I think, is the best compression. And I would use this always whenever I save a TIFF, because I don't really see any reason why not to. For layer compression, you again have three options: faster saves with bigger files, or slower saves with smaller files. And you could even discard all the layers and flatten the whole document into the TIFF file that you are creating. But normally here again, I would use zip. So I don't mind waiting a bit as long as the file will be smaller at the end. And once you click OK, again another dialog box comes up, which just reminds us that having the layers saved into the TIFF file will increase the file size, but that's fine. We know that already. So if I click on OK, now I can see in the status bar the saving, and it's already done. So the TIFF file format is almost like an alternative to the Photoshop document, and it's really up to you which one you prefer. But there is one more file format I would like to mention, and that is PSB or Photoshop Big. Let me show you this. It's under, again, the formats. You can find it here. It's called Large Document Format, and there's the extension PSB, which can be used in case your file is bigger than 2 gigabytes. So any file that is bigger than that has to be saved in PSB. So you won't be able to save it into the normal PSD file format. Apart from that, there's no difference in there. So I just wanted to make sure you are aware of that too. But now that we talked about all the different ways of saving your work, it's time to also see how we can share our work online. This works again if you are a Creative Cloud user and you have a Behance portfolio. Then all you have to do is to go up to the File menu and choose Share on Behance. Once I click on this, this dialog box comes up, and here I can set a couple of things up before I share it. So first of all, I can give it a title. I'm just going to call it Adventure Starts Here. And I can also add tags, comments, and I can decide who is it visible for. If I choose everyone, that obviously means that it's a public project, or I don't mind if my followers can see it. But if I want to share this only with my client, I can choose private. Now, if I click on continue, Photoshop will tell me that my work is already live, and it gives me the link so I can view it. I'm just going to click on this button here, which shows the work here on Behance as part of my portfolio. I can see that this is currently private, so no one else will see it. But I can share this link with my client, and then they can get back to me, even write comments here on the right. Now let's say my client came back and they said that they would like to see a little bit more of the people here in the image. So because of the effect that we created, they are sort of lost in there. So to be able to show them, I am going to go back to that layer under elements. There's that rectangle, and I'm going to add the mask on it. And using the brush tool, I'm just going to paint over these parts very quickly, just to reveal these people until I can see the silhouettes. There's actually another person there. I completely hid that person, and also the feet of this guy here. And now I can zoom even closer, reduce my brush, switch back to white by pressing X, and then I can just paint over quickly all those parts that I don't need to see. And to be honest, I'm going to actually keep a trail here. So I'm not going to be working so precisely around the people, because I would like to make it look like they went through this part here, and I'm not only showing them, but also the trail in which through they went. Further above, I can of course be a little bit tighter, something like that. So I would like to make it look like these people are in front of those letters, something like that. Now if we zoom back, we can see how it looks. It's important that we can still read the text. So the word "the" is clearly visible, but now we can also see these people here, and we can check by shift clicking on the mask. That was before, this is after. So overall, this is just a subtle change, but definitely adds to the whole composition. So if I need to update this change on Behance, I can just go to File, Share on Behance again. But instead of choosing New Work, I'm going to say Revision. And then I can choose Existing Project, the one that I just saved. I can continue. And once it's saved, I can switch back to the online version, where I can already see the updated state. So there's first one, and then the latest version here. And I can even switch back and forth between these two states, which is a brilliant way for both the designer and the client to keep track of all the changes. Some projects can end up having so many different versions that both the designers and the client can get confused or completely lost in the whole project. So keeping a thread of all the changes here on Behance is a great technique. But of course, just to share your work in general, this is probably the best place to do it for creatives. So I can show you my profile, where you can see all my previous projects being shared. And there is also the service for Creative Cloud users called My Portfolio or Adobe Portfolio, where you can share your work that's already on Behance in an even more nicer and neater way. So I switch to the next tab. I can show you this is how the projects that I have on Behance look on My Portfolio, where I can select any of these projects and then I can go through all the images inside. So that's all I wanted to show you about saving your work and sharing it. But in the next video, I'm going to focus on saving Photoshop PDFs for print.